the £1 billion price tag of supermarket fuel. That's the extra cost drivers were charged last year. The competition's watchdog criticised the big four supermarkets, saying profit margins had led to higher prices at the pumps.
The price is coming down, but we're not getting any benefit.
Before I was £100 a week, now 120, 25, so that kind of different.
Also ahead, the nature emergency, unprecedented deaths of fish in UK rivers as wildlife is pounded by extreme weather. The UN condemns an Israeli attack on a Palestinian refugee camp. The Kevin Spacey sexual assault trial, an alleged victim tells the court the actor is a slippery, snaky and difficult person. And game, set and queue, is extra security causing longer lines at Wimbledon.
This is the ITV Lunchtime News with Nina Hossain.
Good afternoon. What cost to the driver paying for petrol at a supermarket? A big inquiry into fuel prices has found the increased costs last year were huge because of a lack of competition between the big four supermarkets. Motorists paid nearly £1 billion more at Asda, Tesco, Sainsbury's and Morrisons because they all increased their profit margins. What's the solution? Well, the Competition and Markets Authority wants motorists to be able to access live and local price comparison information. Sally Biddulph has the details.
Rupert Upton runs a logistics company in Berkshire. Nothing works in his business without fuel, and higher prices at the pump has meant higher prices for customers.
Until February last year, 22, we had never had a fuel surcharge in this business at all. And from that day onwards, we have had to have a fuel surcharge because it was completely beyond our control and we had to pass it on to clients.
Fuel prices are up everywhere, with even the traditionally cheapest retailers like Asda and Morrisons charging more. Research by the Competition and Markets Authority found that from 2019 to 22, margins on fuel at supermarkets increased by 6 pence per litre. On diesel, in the first 6 months of this year alone, it was even higher, with an increase of 13 pence per litre across all retailers. On the motorways, worse still, with petrol at 20 pence more and diesel at 15 pence more compared to other fuel stations. Motorists are angry.
The petrol price has gone up and it's too expensive.
The price is coming down, but we're not getting any benefit.
Before I was £100 a week, now 120, 25, so that kind of different.
The CMA said competition is not working well and greater transparency in pricing is needed to improve consumer confidence and bring down prices for drivers. There is no evidence to suggest that there has been cartel behaviour taking place. So far, Asda has been the only supermarket to respond, saying the presence of an Asda petrol station in a local area keeps prices down for all motorists, and that its focus is on being the cheapest supermarket for fuel and groceries. The CMA is calling though for a better deal for consumers, and it wants to see a fuel monitor website or app which instantly compares prices locally. They estimate it could save up to £4.50 per tank on a typical family car within a 5-minute drive of home. Sally Biddulph, ITV News.
Let's get reaction from our business editor, Joel Hills. Joel, will the watchdog's finding lead to cheaper prices at the pump?
Well, that's what the CMA hopes. I mean, more strikingly, what they're deciding is that in 2022, people paid far more at the pump than they would have done during 2019. Yes, in part because of the war and the pandemic and forcing energy prices up, but also because supermarkets weren't trying as hard to keep their prices low. Let's be clear here, they're not accusing them of any unlawful behaviour, there wasn't a cartel going on here. It's simply the fact that supermarkets spotted an opportunity to inflate their profit margins and they took it. Is that profiteering? Well, you will probably decide for yourself. Everyone will have a view. I mean, it's striking that how much people paid for petrol and diesel was so dependent on whether you had an Asda in your area. Asda is absolutely right. Traditionally, it, and to a lesser degree Morrison's, had been much more aggressive about driving down prices to lure in motorists or any vehicle driver. That during 2021 became less the case. For whatever reason, Asda and Morrison's, and the CMA has seen internal documents to precisely this effect, just decided it wasn't going to try as hard, and therefore Tesco and Sainsbury's, who traditionally have been pretty passive, done whatever that Morrison's has done, tended to follow suit. It is, however, interesting that the remedy here, henceforth, the CMA wants the government to compel suppliers to share pricing data so motorists can be better informed about where the best and cheapest place is to fill up. An answer is definitely not on the motorway.
Joel Hills, thank you very much. Thank you. Next, how last month's hot weather has had an immediate and depressing impact on the UK's wildlife. Campaigners say nature is being pounded by extreme weather without a chance to recover and caused unprecedented deaths of fish in rivers. The Met Office will announce later today if last month was the hottest on record and whether the temperature rises were caused by climate change. The previous record was from the famous summer of 1976, when the average temperature was 14.9 degrees Celsius. Well, this year it's expected to break the record with the hottest June since records began. Layla Hayes joins me in the studio now. Given all the heat that we experienced last month, these figures won't come as a surprise to anyone, will they?
No, Nina, it is not surprising. More and more now, we are seeing records being broken every year, whether it's the wettest, the hottest, the driest. And today we expect the Met Office to confirm that last month was the hottest June on record. And in June, the maximum temperatures weren't exceptionally high. In fact, the hottest temperature was 32.2 degrees Celsius. It wasn't 40 degrees like last summer, but it was the fact that the heat went on for so long that meant it broke records. And it was also very dry with hardly any rain. Now, the Met Office are expected to link this to climate change. Their data shows that average global temperatures are rising. And of course, environmentalists are very concerned about this. They say that last month led to exceptionally high numbers of fish dying. It also affected insects and plants. The average mean temperature for June in the UK was 15.8 degrees Celsius. Now, that is the highest since 1884. So it really is incredible. But the Met Office say we are going to have to get used to this, and we'll just have to wait and see what the rest of the summer brings.
Layla Hayes, thank you very much. Thank you. The UN says it is mobilising humanitarian aid after Israeli forces launched an attack overnight on a refugee camp in the West Bank. Israel sent in around 2,000 soldiers and drones, killing at least 7 Palestinians. The UN says it's alarmed by the scale of the operation. Israel said it was striking terrorist infrastructure, but the Prime Minister of Palestine said Israel was attempting to destroy the camp. Charlie Frost has the details.
In the darkness of the early hours, Israeli forces launched missiles into the Jenin refugee camp, targeting, they say, terrorists. It started as drone attacks, then 2,000 of its troops moved in, Palestinians throwing stones in retaliation. This one of the largest military operations in the West Bank in years. What is happening is a new attempt to remove the camp from existence and displace its people, said the Palestinian Prime Minister, going on to say Israel is the aggressor, bombing innocent people. Located in the north of the Israeli-occupied area, the Jenin camp houses 14,000 displaced Palestinians living in less than half a square kilometre. In the past year, tensions have been rising. Jenin repeatedly raided by the Israeli military, and Palestinians living in the camp are linked to multiple shooting attacks against Israelis. But the Israeli foreign minister insists the target of this operation isn't Palestinian civilians.
Due to the terror organization and the funds they received from Iran, the Jenin camp has become a center for a terrorist activity.
Palestinian officials say 8 Palestinians have been killed and more than 50 others wounded. Numbers that it's feared will keep rising as the guns keep firing. Charlie Frost, ITV News.
After almost a week of violence in France, protest eased overnight. The riots began after traffic police shot dead a teenage driver. This weekend, the victim's family called for calm. Our correspondent John Ray has the latest from Paris.
Well, there is an almost tangible feeling of relief and a little exhaustion here on the streets of Paris after night of really great violence. Last night was a good deal calmer. And I think that really is for 3 separate reasons. First of all, after more than 3,000 arrests, a great many of the troublemakers have been taken off the streets. At the same time, the government had put 45,000 policemen onto the streets. But I think the main reason has been the appeal for calm, not so much from the political leaders of France, but from the family of Naël, the 17-year-old whose killing by the police sparked these riots. His grandmother was quoted on French television as saying, look, please go home. Don't smash windows, don't burn buses, don't burn schools. She says the family now trusts the French judicial system to get to the bottom of this. And remember, the police officer at the centre of it has been charged with homicide. However, that feeling of confidence in the judicial system isn't widely shared in Parisian suburbs like this. Here, if you speak to people of African or Arab heritage, well, they feel very much like second-class citizens in their own country. So, although the anger may have subsided a little, I'm afraid the underlying tensions are very much still evident.
John Ray in Paris there. A group of Conservative MPs have published an alternative plan to the Prime Minister's to cut both legal and illegal immigration. The 10-point plan includes limiting the number of refugees. Our political correspondent Libby Vina is outside the press conference in Westminster. Libby, this is quite awkward for Rishi Sunak.
Yes, it is quite awkward, but it could have been even more awkward because among those who were due to speak was the Vice Chair of the Conservative Party, Lee Anderson. We're told that he's not well, so he hasn't been able to attend, but it is embarrassing nonetheless because the Prime Minister is already struggling to meet his target, one of his key 5 priorities, to stop the boats, as he calls it, that is, reduce what he says is illegal migration. Well, now this group of MPs is highlighting the fact that they say net migration, net legal migration is still far too high as well. They want it reduced back to the level it was before the 2019 general election, that is 220,000. To give you an idea of how difficult that might be, the latest figures are that it was 600,000 and still rising. Now, feelings are running extremely high if you listen to what the MPs have just been saying inside the building behind me.
A failure to keep numbers down, despite a clear mandate and repeated promises, raises deep concerns about national and cultural security and sovereignty and democracy. But mass immigration has also had a detrimental impact on economic security. It has made ordinary families less economically secure.
Well, Labour have decided to go on the attack over this, suggesting it speaks of a chaotic government. This is what the Shadow Schools Minister had to say this morning.
What we've got is a weak Prime Minister and a divided Conservative Party. You know, the fact that someone that's the Vice Chair of the Conservative Party is now making recommendations to the Prime Minister says that this government has run out of ideas and have run out of steam.
Well, the Prime Minister's spokesman rejected out of hand two of the suggestions by this group of MPs, one being to actually stop allowing care homes to recruit workers from abroad on a special visa scheme. So not much common ground between the Prime Minister and these new rebels.
Libby Vina, thank you. Still to come, are water cremations the answer for more environmentally friendly burials? And Wimbledon's here, but there's frustration over this year's queues. First, one of the men accusing Kevin Spacey of assaulting him has told the actor's trial he was a slippery, snaky, difficult person and a very mixed-up individual. The man, who isn't being named for legal reasons, accused the Oscar winner of assaulting him more than 10 times, saying Spacey had promised to introduce him to A-list stars. The actor is facing 12 counts of sexual assault against 4 men and denies all the charges. Our reporter Carolyn Sim is at the trial at Southwark Crown Court. Carolyn, take us through what the court has heard so far today.
Well, this morning the jury was shown a police video interview with one of Kevin Spacey's alleged victims. In it, he outlined how he alleges Spacey touched him inappropriately over a period of around 5 years. The court was told on one occasion the man had driven Spacey to a celebrity party. He had touched him on the leg, and then that he had been grabbed in the private parts so aggressively that he nearly came off the road. And when the man shouted at Kevin Spacey to stop, his only response was to laugh and giggle. It didn't matter to him, the man said. He enjoyed it. The court then heard that Spacey would stop his behaviour for a while before then starting it again, almost as if the man said he thought he could groom me. While the alleged victim said he tried to blank out what had happened to him. He said he was anxious, depressed and embarrassed. Under cross-examination, Spacey's lawyers asked the man, who gave evidence behind a screen, if in fact the truth was that he didn't always tell Spacey to stop and that he had let him do what he was doing, which the man strongly denied. Well, Kevin Spacey denies all 12 charges against him, and this trial is expected to last for the next 4 weeks.
Carolyn Sim, thank you. With a shortage of space for burial plots in the UK and concerns over the environmental impact of cremation, there has been a push for greener funerals. Now, one business is introducing water cremations to the UK for the first time. So, how do they work and how are they more environmentally friendly? Barbara Holmes has the story.
It is one of humanity's oldest rituals. How we lay our dead to rest has barely changed in millennia. But now a new technique is to be introduced to the UK. Resumation, or water cremation, is a process in which the dead are placed in a biodegradable pouch and put in a container filled with pressurised water and potassium hydroxide. In a 4-hour process, their remains are reduced to an ash-like white powder, which are returned to loved ones in an urn.
Although a lot of people don't know about resumation prior to us talking to them, 29% of them have said they would be interested in it. And we also spoke to a number of people who'd recently arranged a funeral with us, and 19% of those people said that they would have chosen resumation had that been a choice at the time that they made those arrangements.
When Archbishop Desmond Tutu died in 2021, he chose water cremation for his funeral in South Africa. It's permitted there, Canada and in 30 states in America. Co-op Funeral Care says it will be providing the service in the UK later this year. It says research suggests it's more environmentally friendly than gas cremation.
Someone choosing resumation, they're not doing it because of necessarily the price, they're doing it because they're conscious of the impact of their funeral that it might have on the environment.
This is the first alternative to burial or cremation in the UK since the Cremation Act of 1902. A way to look to the future for those contemplating the end of their lives. Barbara Holmes, ITV News.
Nearly a year on from the first national rail strike since the 1980s began, today sees passengers hit with the latest round of industrial action by rail workers. From today, there's an overtime ban on train drivers in the ASLEF union. It will affect 16 train companies and will run from today until Saturday. And a government inquiry has found that Sue Gray broke the civil service code by failing to declare she'd been offered a job by the Labour Party. Miss Gray, who led the Partygate investigation, was approached to be Sir Keir Starmer's Chief of Staff while still a civil servant. She'll still be able to take up the role in September. Thousands of people queuing through the night in a corner of southwest London can mean only one thing. Wimbledon players just got underway at centre court with Novak Djokovic looking to break another Grand Slam record. More security this year has led to more complaints of how long it's taking to get into the grounds. Martha Fairley is there. Martha, what's the latest?
Well, just before midday today, Wimbledon organisers said they expected the grounds to be at capacity today. And that means for those people who've been queuing since very early this morning, many of them still face a few hours wait before they may get their hands on some tickets. Now, there has been a level of unhappiness about that on social media and grumblings within the queue as well this morning. Wimbledon say they are carrying out enhanced bag searches this year, but that there's no issue, just very high demand. But the long wait doesn't seem to have affected too much the overall feeling of excitement and anticipation.
This is the most amount of people we've seen in the queue for years and years, probably since before COVID.
It's been pretty boring, but it's been like, there's been some fun times, like when we got gummies for breakfast. Yeah.
First time at Wimbledon, really excited to soak up the atmosphere, get to see the kind of famous grass courts, hopefully try some famous strawberries and cream.
Well, in the past few minutes, the defending champion Novak Djokovic walked out on centre court. He's playing against Argentina's Pedro Cachin, while the women's number one Iga Swiatek's been playing China's Lin Zhu on number one court. Venus Williams will also be out later, and this year sees the return of Russian and Belarusian players after they were banned last year. But Harriet Dart has become Britain's first player to be knocked out. All British hopes today will be on Dan Evans.
Martha, thank you. Finally, did you see it? The first supermoon of the year lit up the skies above the UK last night. It looks bigger and shines brighter because the moon is closer to the Earth. These pictures from the northeast show July's buck supermoon in all its glory. That's all from us so far today. From everyone on today's team, bye-bye.